everyone. Just checking to see if this is going live, if everything is working. I'm using a new system. I'm just checking in. You all there? It says so. Yep. Here we go. So, some interesting news right now. This is breaking news that just occurred. California, the old line, as California goes, so goes the country, and that also includes, in some cases, in some ways, it has to do with climate change. We we all know the facts. We all know how much time we have. We all know climate change is already taking place. We all know that it's almost too late at this point, and that our leaders are completely beholden to oil and gas companies. This story just broke. I'm gonna kind of go through it with you, and as I'm doing this, let me just send love to our friends in Lebanon. They had a massive explosion today in Beirut. They think they're not entirely sure what caused it, but they think it had something to do with the factory. That it was not. There was some misinformation out there about it being terrorism. As of right now, there's no indication of that, but it is very concerning in a country right now that has been hit extremely hard by climate change by COVID, and their infrastructure has been affected. It's been affected in lots of different ways, that it's been hard for them to take on the capacity of those who've been hit. The hospitals are overrun, and now you have this explosion, which has been felt 100 miles away on the island of Cyprus. That's how far it's been felt. It shook. I mean, Beirut is right on the water. Beirut is a pretty fun place. It's a lively place, a lot of young people. This is a tumultuous area, tumultuous location, and I just want to send all of our love to those folks in Lebanon, hoping that this is not something that that there aren't that many casualties as a result. But all right, so the LA Times reported earlier today that California is being sued over climate change policy. So there aren't that many places right now in the country where any of our supposed Democratic leaders are doing anything related to climate change. Yet, even if they were, now the big gas companies, the oil and gas companies, are fighting back. It's not, it's bad enough that they target climate change activists, they follow them, they harass them, they bring bots, they buy bots online, they plant fake stories, they basically pay off institutions and organizations to plant fake stories. They'll do opposition research on activists. They will put out paid-for propaganda. They will create, documentaries to go up against, science-based documentaries. They will pay for studies at institutions, organizations, and universities included, who are looking for funding. They will do it so that there is doubt placed out there, so that they can back it up. When they go on Fox Business or Fox News, they have one of their more centrist reporters, cite the study that is a little bit more apologetic. I say apologetic for a reason, that does not back up climate change entirely, that it puts seeds of doubt. I've been on these panels. I've fought off these folks. I was on a panel, maybe 2 months ago. Actually, it was before COVID, so it's further back, at Fox News Online with the executive editor of the Wall Street Journal. And then a far right-wing conservative. And the Wall Street Journal guy was supposed to be the moderate, that, he said climate change existed, but it was, we were blowing things out of proportion, and that he believed that fracking was the way to go. Because, they've been saying this for over a decade, that it is a transition fuel. So, Southern California Gas Company, quote from the Los Angeles Times, Sammy Roth, is taking the battle with state officials over climate change policy to court, arguing a new lawsuit in the California Energy Commission has failed to promote natural gas as required by state law. So somehow it is the state's duty to promote an industry because they lobbied it into this bill, essentially, to fight climate change by moving to natural gas, which is, of course, fracking. Which, let's rewind, fracking, the entire industry, the fracking industrial complex that has been created by these oil and gas companies that are backing fracking. Okay, let's just stop here. If fracking was the thing that were to be the transition to solve our climate change issues, to get off of natural gas, why would a gas company, an oil and gas company, back a fracking company? We don't have time. We know that. That's why the divestment movement is so powerful. That's why the Green New Deal, including the divestment movement, is powerful. Because there are conversations about excluding divestment. There is no in between. We do not have the time. We have to get off fossil fuels. We have to get off natural gas. There is no incrementalism, and fracking is definitely not the case because it increases CO2 in the atmosphere. Go watch Gasland if you haven't already. Our friend Josh Fox produced that in Gasland 2. You know, that I think his first one was in 2009 or 10, if I'm correct. That's when I first met him. We worked on the anti-fracking campaign here in New York. This is absolutely ridiculous that this stuff is happening. So the lawsuit was filed Friday in Orange County, of course, a conservative county. So let's just keep that in mind. Lots of places in Southern California, they could have filed it. They filed it in Orange County. I don't know who the judge is, but I'm going to think that maybe they're a little bit more conservative. Just saying. Because Orange County is conservative. So it was filed in Orange County Superior Court, is the latest attempt by Southern California Gas to shield itself against efforts to phase out gas, a planet-warming fossil fuel used for heating. Okay, we know what gas is. The company, which maintains its headquarters in Los Angeles, decided to go 100 miles down to Orange County, where it was conservative, to file this lawsuit. Not in Los Angeles, where there is an active climate. There are tons of climate activists who could show up, including elected officials and maybe even judges who believe in science. So just a nice little reminder. Remember when Orange County had that public hearing about masks? Google that. That's a great one. You could see what the culture is down there. It's been traditionally conservative. It is moving a little bit more centrist. I will say that it's becoming more purple, but it's traditionally more conservative and very wealthy. So that company is owned by Sempra Energy, which is out of San Diego, not Orange County. Took in $4.5 billion in operating revenue last year. A separate lawsuit was filed last week against the state's Air Resources Board by the California Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition, which two charter members are SoCal Gas and Clean Energy Fuels. So they're freaking out. They're freaking out that their supposed venture off of oil and gas into natural gas is going to be lost because you have all these divestment organizers everywhere. Because the lawmakers in California, many of whom, not all, but many of whom are Democrats, and many of the Democrats are feeling the pressure. There's a huge divestment movement in Southern California. They're feeling the pressure and they're freaking out. So this is what they're doing. It's their last-ditch effort, hopefully, to fight off any sort of regulation that gets them off of natural gas, because the science is in about natural gas. It's been in. But finally, their science has been debunked because it is pay-to-play science. They have paid for their studies, which they cite with right-wing news organizations. So they're creating their little propaganda scheme. So some clean energy advocates, whatever that means, once embraced gas as a bridge fuel that could help economies transition from polluting fuels, particularly coal, to renewables such as solar and wind power. Right. But climate emission from gas is now rising faster than coal emissions are falling. Keep in mind, during COVID, when production has been stunted and down, when people are not on the roads, although that is not necessarily the number one cause, it is a contributing factor, but it is not. And in Southern California in particular, you know, we talk about pollution in the air, and so much of it actually comes from Long Beach, where the port is, where all of these ships come in. And so the ships, which are mostly coal, right, coal-fueled, they're pollution. The air flows through Los Angeles, the Valley, and Southern California. So many people thought it was due to cars. Absolutely, there are a lot of cars in Los Angeles, lots of traffic. We all know, we've seen the photos, but so much of it is actually from the port there, the port of Long Beach. Okay. So Panama Bartholomew, director of Building Decarbonization Coalition, which is an advocacy group that supports replacing gas appliances with electric alternatives, stated that what you have coming up is really big fear for deciding the fate of gas in California. And I think this SoCal Gas really, that they're starting to really feel the pressure, which is exactly what I just said. So they're starting to feel the pressure, and they're filing lawsuits in places that are probably going to be more amenable to their argument. The company says its pipelines have an important role to play in the clean energy transition. There is no transition. We are in climate change. I had a hurricane out my window today. Literally. It was a tropical storm. My friend just texted me, two trees just fell onto her house. My dad texted me another tree. A huge tree, deeply rooted, collapsed in Connecticut. This is not the norm for the New York area, the tri-state area. It is not the norm, but it is becoming the norm. The news has been about how the winds today are going to be very similar, or have been similar, to Sandy level winds. This is not normal. I was here for Sandy. It's not normal. So all of these things, of course, are related. There is no transition time. This is gobbledygook. This is essentially messaging pushed out by industry level messaging, which has been tested, and it's being reinforced by news organizations. I mean, even this piece, I mean, they have to cover this and they have to give both sides, but, you know, it would be great if they were just like, natural gas is not a transition fuel. There is no such thing as transition. Natural gas actually, the fracking increases carbon emissions in the world. It would be great if they said that. And Los Angeles Times is better at that. But once again, here's another quote. You know, wouldn't it be great if like journalists operated the way that the right wing does, operated when it comes to reporting on climate change? Wouldn't it be great if journalists operated that way when it comes to climate change, the way that the right wing does when reporting on the progressives, or when the centrists come to reporting on progressives? They'll give you one quote, they'll take it out of context, and they'll leave it at the end of the article. But no. The Southern California Gas Company has full opportunity to give their side of the story. There's paragraphs upon paragraphs of their side of the story. Their quote, and I'm doing it myself, but I want you to see how ridiculous this is. Natural gas and renewable gas are clean, affordable, resilient, and reliable sources of energy on which millions of California consumers and businesses depend. Natural gas has played a significant role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and improving air quality. False, false, false. The next paragraph should be, that is not true. Our reporters decided to talk to scientists, and turns out that's not true. That's false. But no, they're going to put it out there. The lawsuit claims state officials are flouting a law requiring them to consider the role gas might play in reducing emissions. So the Natural Gas Act, uneffing believable, was signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown in 2013. It was overwhelmingly approved in the Assembly. It's Assembly Bill 1257. So look back to 2013. I don't know if the sea change happened at that point. But they lobbied heavily for this, especially in California, and now they're getting desperate because I do think the sea change has happened, but is it too late? So there was a commission, an energy commission was set up to identify strategies to maximize the benefits obtained from natural gas as an energy source. For 4 years. This is the problem with neoliberalism. This is it. They're so easily influenced by business-based solutions to major problems that are interpreted as incrementalism. Natural gas is not incrementalism off of oil and gas. It is actually just as dangerous. And yet, they frame it and they bill it in a way that Democrats can safely say that they are supporters of natural gas, but it's incrementalism. Just as charter schools were framed as incrementalism, but it's Betsy DeVos, pseudo profit making. Everything is about incrementalism. And we know what that means, right? So, Southern California Oil and Gas, the commission failed to meet its obligation in 2019 when, instead of a full-fledged report, it issued a 22-page appendix to a larger energy policy document. Maybe it's because Democrats are starting to realize natural gas is bad for the environment and that we have no time. So there are a lot of great organizations doing incredible climate policy work and organizing. Sunrise, of course, is getting a lot of attention, but there are literally hundreds of organizations out there stopping pipelines, fighting natural gas extraction. There are documentaries out there. There are activists like Bill McKibben, 350.org, Jane Klebb, fought Keystone XL pipeline. She's in the DNC, and she's the chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party. I mean, there are great Tara Houska, who's working with indigenous communities and climate change. These are all amazing activists doing the real work. And that's just a handful of people, But it's really going to require a massive education effort immediately into what this is, what this messaging tactic is, how they're able to move these state level lawmakers into thinking that this is true. I remember during my campaign, we had a climate change forum, and we're 17 candidates, right? 17 candidates in my race. The biggest solutions were to get off of plastic straws. I remember getting up, and someone can find the footage, I remember getting up and yelling at some of the people on stage who are elected officials for not understanding how climate change worked, meaning how vulnerable New York City was to climate change, especially after Sandy, especially with our water being poisoned, especially with the fact that the biggest cause of emissions in the city comes from gas that is emitted through buildings, leaked out through buildings because there's not energy efficiency in these buildings. It's centrally controlled. In my apartment, I can't control my heat at all, and a lot of people open up their windows and it's leaked out. That's just one aspect of it. Shout out to Councilmember Costa Constantinidis. He's one of the biggest climate change lawmakers, advocates in this country, and it's really sad that there are not more like him. But he got that bill passed after many years of fighting to have some sort of regulation because the real estate industry didn't want to shift in any way. It was an anti-climate change policy as much as it was a anti-real estate policy, and it's very, very dangerous to go up against real estate in this city. Pretty much everybody in New York takes real estate money, even if they claim to be against real estate. That was a big part of my campaign. But this climate change conversation was so revealing to me because it really showed how little our lawmakers in the city understood, and somewhere from the state level, understood just basic concepts related to the environment, basic concepts when it comes to energy efficiency. The climate change activists, their whole solutions were like ban plastic straws. Important, and like they were talking about recycling, but do your research in the background of like why recycling became a topic of conversation rather than deeper stuff like getting off of fossil fuels. And it revealed to me that there is a lack of education amongst our lawmakers, and I think we should do more lobby days. I think that we should really hold their feet to the fire, not just when it comes to divestment, but like really understanding what this means. What does it mean to divest? What does it mean for the community? What does it mean for jobs? What does it mean for restaurant owners who don't want to get off of gas because they like gas stoves? I mean, these are all pieces of that puzzle. What does it mean for real estate to have to adjust how they build or retrofit buildings and structures? What do all these things mean? And I think ultimately the problem is that too many lawmakers are listening to lobbyists, and that's how you educate them on policy. I saw AOC, someone tweeted this out yesterday, it was brilliant. Someone tweeted out something about AOC asking how to educate people, her colleagues on TikTok, because they were, on Twitch, because they were discussing Twitch and how they're recruiting people to join the military through Twitch, young people. And someone said, hire a lobbyist. I was like, that's it. That's exactly it. That's how you get to their ears. So, very frustrating. We'll watch this closely. We got a lot of work to do. We got to do it quickly. They have all the resources. Oil and gas, of course, are extremely powerful interests, and they're going to do all they can to fight off any regulation, especially if it means fighting back against their transition industry, which is natural gas, which is really what they've been projecting in terms of their profit making for the next several years. So we just have to keep fighting. We have to keep educating ourselves. We have to keep pushing back against our local electeds, even if they appear to be progressive. Start to look through their votes a little bit more. You'd be surprised. You'd be really surprised on this stuff. And you should ask them questions and see if they can answer. And if they can't, say, I'd love to educate you more about this. That's what it's going to take. Much love to you all. Stay safe, stay well, stay healthy, and we're really hoping, hoping most people in Beirut are safe. The story is developing, and we don't know much. Actually, we had Dr. Jim Zogby on our show this week, who is the president of the Arab American Institute, and we interviewed him a couple days ago, but he's been tweeting about this regularly. We interviewed him at the DNC. That's why we interviewed him. But if you have a chance to look at his Twitter, he's been tweeting about what's going on in Beirut. He's of Lebanese descent, and he is very involved in the community, and so it's a shame. And one more thing, folks have to deal with in the midst of a crisis, and especially in Lebanon, where the hospitals are being overrun. So we're just hoping most people are safe and healthy, and it was really mainly just physical damage. We're just hoping. All right, take care, everyone.